Hello there YouTube, my name is Chuggy and today I am playing some Battlefield 3, playing some Capture the Flag on Khazar Railroad and Conquest on Azadi Palace. And today guys, it is question time part 30. Again, in succession, I have had another set of amazing questions to answer, ranging from my thoughts of Far Cry 3 to motorsport in general, all sorts of stuff this week. And today I'll be giving you my honest answers to your great questions. I've got 39 questions to get through this week, a significant chunk from one person, and I hope to answer all of those as well. So yeah, it should be hopefully a good question time this week. To talk about the two gameplays, well first of all, you're going to see a gameplay here playing some Capture the Flag on Khazar Railroad. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but never mind. Joined the game late, admittedly, only maybe halfway through the game, but I decided to play a little bit of defensive recon and see what I can do there. So that, well, it was a pretty decent result, I thought. And on top of that, the second game, I had quite an interesting situation. I ran into a couple of my subscribers, so I thought it'd be nice to first of all show off one of the games I played with you guys, and go from there really. So yeah, cool. First of all, I think it's only the second time I've ever run into anyone who recognised me, sort of in game at all in general. So it was neat to play with you guys, and you'll know who you are when you come up in the squad. So with that, I will kick off with the first question this week, and it comes from Trey Kuriba, and they ask, do I try and keep my kits balanced in the number of service stars I have, or do I just sort of use them as needed in the match? And out of the M40A5 and the SV98, what would I choose? Well, definitely the M40A5. I get on a lot better with that than the SV98, although I'm continuing to use the SV98, and I'm impressed with what it can do in a pinch. And in terms of the kits being used, yeah, I do. I tend to use them sort of as the game requires it. If I'm going for, say, an assignment or something, yeah, I will play a particular class. Or if, I want to try and do something a little bit different, play very defensive as a recon, as I'm doing here, yeah, I'll play it that way as well. But yeah, I don't tend to, try and keep anything balanced. I think actually it's pretty neat to look at it in terms of how I've had to play the game based on my experience in each kit. So for example, and this surprised me as it happens, and if you will, this sort of iteration of my Battlefield career, but I've been playing a lot more support than usual. So, and I don't normally do that. I'm normally one of the more focused kind of attacking kind of guys, rather than sort of a hold at bay defensive type. So it's quite interesting actually, but I digress. So yeah, I use them as required, and yeah, M40A5 for me. So Trey, thank you very much for your questions. Next, two questions this week comes from Gasman2418, and they ask, well, first of all, they asked last time out what my favourite Formula 1 track is, so now what's my least favourite Formula 1 track and why? Easy, Korea. One of these tracks which has been created rather than born, and it's never given particularly interesting racing. No one goes and actually physically watches it. It's just a pretty dull, tedious race, and I don't really like it very much. So yep, Korea, nice and easy. And their second question is, how did I get my name of Chuggy? Well, it is Chuggy normally in terms of 2 G's rather than 2 9's, and I'll explain why it's 2 9's here in a moment. I've got a question about that. But Chuggy is my nickname. It came about because of, first of all, I have a real interest in steam trains, and also it's a kind of a play on words on my surname as well. And for those of you who are wondering, Williams is not my real surname. So yeah, it was a play of words. It sort of was mentioned to me once when I was, I think, just entering secondary school, and it has stuck with me. So yeah, there you go. That's where Chuggy came from. So Gasman, thank you very much for the questions there. Next question comes from Maverick SASR, and they ask, what are my thoughts on Daniel Ricciardo's results in China, and what are my thoughts on Mark Webber's sort of rumour of him leaving Red Bull? Well, I thought Daniel did a great job in China, and well, for instance, Jensen Button over the radio, wow, good on him kind of thing reaction. Yeah, he put in a great performance, and he clearly has the speed and the pace, and he got that Toro Rosso well forward, so good on him. And my thoughts about Mark Webber, well, I've talked about it in the past, but I think it's a really horrible situation to be in. He has helped build that team up to what it is today, and he's being treated like garbage. So if he did move, I would not blame him at all. I just really, really hope that he is treated with respect, and given what he's contributed to the team and everything else. And yeah, I just hope that he can enjoy his racing. I'll say that. So Maverick, thank you very much for those questions there. Gasman 2418 is back again, and they ask, which Formula 1 tracks would I like to see back in Formula 1 if they've been sort of removed, whatever else. Good question, very good question, and I'm just trying to think on the top of my head, what tracks would I like to see come back? Well, there are some tracks which, for instance, in Europe, which were used a lot back in the 90s. In fact, it got to a point where most of the races were in Europe. It wasn't really a world championship anymore. There are some pretty cool tracks. You have the likes of Magny-Cours, Imola, as Gasman sort of points out in the question. But one track I'd like to go back to, purely because of purely because of its kind of heritage, is Jerez. It's used as one of the testing tracks in Formula 1, so it would have a kind of echo with Barcelona. In fact, they're both in Spain as well. Perhaps not, because obviously there's a bit of a discussion about Spain having 2 races and all this kind of jazz. So yeah, I would say probably Jerez. It's a neat track, raced in the past, provides good racing opportunities, the teams know it, and it should provide some close racing, I hope. So yeah, Gasman, thank you very much for that other question there. Next question comes from Adel Al Sayed, I hope I've said that right for you there, and they ask, what is my favourite Formula 1 game from over the years, and what is my favourite sort of racing moment of my career, and why? I think, purely for nostalgia's sake, my favourite Formula 1 game was F1 97. First Formula 1 game I played, and it had a lot of, well, first of all, depth to it, and there was lots to unlock, lots to do, lots of little Easter eggs and stuff as well. Like there was a whole 1960s style race you could do in black and white with the old school kind of front engine rear wheel drive cars, which was a lot of fun. And it had commentary from Murray Walker and Martin Brundle. Just all in all, it was just a great game and a really good Formula 1 game. So yeah, that's definitely my favourite, I'd say, out of all the games which are out there. And what is my favourite racing moment of my career? That is really difficult. I can't immediately recall one moment which made me go, oh yes, I remember this particularly. But I gotta say, actually, the racing I've been doing with the TSA lot in the GRC and the Touring Pro Series, Tom Onslow Cole Clio Series, I've really enjoyed what I've been doing there. And I think that probably one of my favourite moments from that, and I guess I'd have to say this is kind of the answer to the question, is the scraps I've had with Phil and Tom in the various races, because we've sort of given up each other space and everything else, but we have been racing at the same time. When you spectate a motor race, obviously you want to have a spectacle, and that is what you watch it for, right? And as a driver, obviously you want to win the race primarily, but you want to have good scraps along the way. And I think that the battles we have had have been indicative of that, and I've enjoyed doing it. For instance, actually, now I come to think of it, the racing we had at Oldring last time out with Mr. Glenn Guest and Mr. Robert Wiesemuller, that was again incredibly fair, close racing, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'd have to say sort of the close wheel-to-wheel stuff I've done with my teammates, because we've got the job done and we've had some fun on the way. So I'll answer it like that. Thank you very much, Adele, there for the questions. Next question comes from Mr. Ruby 1000, and they ask, what are my thoughts about Far Cry 1, if I've played it, and in general my thoughts on the Far Cry games. Well, I haven't played Far Cry 1, so I can't answer that bit, but I have played Far Cry 2 and 3. Now, I haven't finished Far Cry 3, it kind of got lost in the mix of all the crazy awesome games coming out last year. What I will say is I'm really enjoying that, and I'm going to be finishing that off hopefully in the very near future. But Far Cry 2 was kind of a disappointment. They kind of built it up, this great story and all this kind of stuff, and if you've played it, you'll know there's weirdness towards the end, or in fact at the end. So yeah, I enjoy it. I like the concept of you kind of approach it whatever way you want and go from there. But yeah, Far Cry 2 was a bit of a letdown for story reasons, and it was kind of I don't know, just not quite all there. Far Cry 3, much better. So yeah, I'll say that. Mr. Ruby, thank you very much for your question there. Next question comes from Vordays, and they ask, the rookies in this year's Formula 1 season haven't really been that impressive, but what do I think of the talent and the chances for Formula 1 with the current feeder series, GP2, GP3, etc., such as James Calado and Bordes' compatriot, Antonio Felix da Costa. Well, I'll be honest, as I've butchered a few names there, I'll be honest, I don't tend to watch GP2 and that kind of stuff, but what I will say is I've heard a lot about them. So for me not to have watched GP2, but to know about them, say something about their ability, I would agree that the rookies this year, they haven't been particularly impressive. You know, of all of the rookies out there, I'd have to say that actually, you know, Marussia have had a pretty good sort of, if you, I wouldn't say job, but you know, they've definitely had the pick of the rookie litter. You know, in terms of the performances they've put in and everything so far, but yeah, I mean, there's always a constant thing in Formula One of, you know, there's going to be the next driver along. That used to be because of well, basically, you know, driver skill, whatever else. These days it's more down to money, but yeah, you know, it's interesting to keep an eye on these new guys as they come up, of course, and obviously the bigger the sort of, well, I won't say the shockwave, but the bigger the publicity they get earlier on, and the more they can get their name out there, I think that can only be a good thing. So yeah, for instance, I've heard a lot about Antonio, not so much about James, but yeah, well, we will see what happens, and of course if the rookies don't do their job particularly well this year, they might not be around for much longer. Who knows? So yeah, it's always good for motorsport that you've got, you know, new up-and-coming talent to keep the current crop on their toes, and well, we'll hopefully have some good racing out of it. So I'll say that. 4 days, thank you very much for the question there. Next question comes from Chip Off the Block 99, and they say that Pirelli are adding another set of tyres to be used in Formula 1 qualification over the weekend to hopefully get more cars on track during Q3. What do I think about that, and, you know, the possibility of a qualifying tyre? Well, to explain kind of the background to the guys who don't really follow Formula 1, there's a limited number of tyres each driver gets in the weekend, and it can be the case in the qualifying session that it actually might be advantageous to not do a time, and instead actually to keep that set of tyres for the race. So what's happening is you get some qualifying sessions where, you know, only, I don't know, for instance in Q3 you see this a lot, where it's the top 10 shootout, where only maybe the top 8 drivers go out because the others want to conserve their tyres for later on. By adding another set of tyres, yeah, hopefully it will get more cars on track and make it more of a spectacle. But the concept of a qualifying tyre, I wouldn't say is scary to me, but I think it would take away a bit of the strategy which you see these days, where you have a you know, a team deliberately going on, say, the harder of the two compounds that particular weekend, qualifying further down the grid, but then they can go further in the race. I really like that concept, and I'm not sure how you know, a qualifying tyre, which obviously would only be good for the qualifying session, you know, I think you know, strategically that might take away, I don't know. So yeah, I definitely, you know, I have no problem with them adding more tyres to try and get more action on the track. No problem with that at all. But a concept of a qualification tyre, I'm not so sure about. So yeah, I think that pretty much answers that. So Chip Off the Block, thank you very much for your question there. Next question comes from the Gamosaurus, and they ask, well, considering how much sim racing I'm doing on PC these days, have I ever thought about joining the FSR, which is the Formula Sim Racing League? Well, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like the pinnacle. This is like the Formula 1 of sim racing, and to answer the question, not for a while yet. So I am still very much rookie learning things, so I'll keep an eye on it, but I'm no Bono Huis or anyone like that, you know, the guys who just Vettel'd it, quite literally. It would be something good fun to do, but in terms of, you know, my time and stuff I've got available, I can only really basically keep up with maybe 2 leagues at once. You know, for instance, GRC and the TPS Clio series at the moment. But other than that, you know, that might be a bit of a push to keep our leagues in scope for actually competing and being competitive in. So potentially in the future is, I think, the kind of answer, although I have no idea how long that might take. We will see. I might not be quick enough anyway, as it happens, so we will see. But it's something certainly on my radar, although I've not been particularly dab handy in single-seaters in practices I've done so far in sim racing stuff, so we'll have to wait and see, I guess. So, the Gamosaurus, thank you very much for your question there. Next question comes from Dambaz F1, and they ask, what do I think about Caterham having to resort to rehiring Heikki Kovalainen to help them compete with the Marussias this year? I think it is a pretty nice kind of picture to explain where Caterham are these days. I'm really disappointed, really, in their performance in Formula 1 in general since they've come into the sport, because they have had the most money, the most people, the most potential, and they just really haven't done anything with it. Whereas whereas Marussia have come in and they've really shown the field that they mean business. Yeah, Heike coming back. Well, first of all, good for Heike. He's a very good driver, and he'll be able to certainly help the team improve the car for the two rookies. But you've got to be asking questions of the team now. They have had the resources. Why are they not in the midfield after a few years? The first few years, yeah, we can kind of, let them off the hook a bit. They're still getting up to pace and speed, but they're still not quite there. And now there is talk of sort of a merger between Marussia and Caterham. That's not what you really want to hear. I know or either fan. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's how to answer it. Interesting indeed. So yeah, Danvaz, hopefully that will answer your question for you. Thank you very much for it. Next question comes from Bonkers Self, and they ask, what do I think of the next-gen games Destiny, Thief, and Assassin's Creed 4, and will I do a 6K subscriber video? Yes, I have. Hopefully you've seen that. What do I think about Destiny, Assassin's Creed, and Thief? Well, I'll be honest, I haven't really been following Destiny now that much. Likewise Assassin's Creed, but I have been keeping an eye on Thief, because it's a kind of, well, I wouldn't call it a reboot, but it's a next iteration of the Thief series, and for those of you who don't know what Thief is about, it is one of the original, if not the original, stealth games. Yeah, I'm interested in it, and I will wait until, well, first of all we get, more details about the next-gen consoles and etc. And I think I'll probably make a comment there, actually, because obviously we have no idea what, for instance, the next Xbox is going to be capable of, and given that, you could have some crazy, I don't know, augmented reality stuff which makes the game much more enjoyable. Who knows? There could be all sorts of things in the mix. But yeah, I am interested in Thief. The other two, not so much. For instance, in Assassin's Creed's case, I kind of got bored of the series. They just seem to, release a title every year, and it's kind of taken away from at least the story to where I'd followed it up to. And yeah, the Destiny hasn't been on my radar, but certainly what they've been talking about it has put it on my radar. So a bit. So yeah, can't really comment on all of them. Thief, I am looking forward to. So yeah, thank you very much for the question there. Bonkers Self, I lost your name there in the list. Yeah, thank you for all that. Next question comes from Dylan H, and they ask, what was it like for me in school? Was it bad? Yes, it was, actually. Both primary and secondary school, I got bullied a lot, to the point where actually in secondary school I had to get counselling to, keep me going to school every day. Yeah, it was not good, and I don't like to think of it very much, and it was just unfortunate. It's a classic case of bullying, right? Just, for whatever reason, people wanted to bully, and I was the one being bullied. So, yeah, I don't tend to think about it much anymore because, it's in the past. It's what happened, and unfortunately, a lot of people experience bullying as a result. But academically, I did well. I was never any good at doing tests, so my scores and such were never really that good. But I understood the principles, I was able to apply it, and well, I went through university, I got my degree, and now I've got a job. So fundamentally, the education system has worked for me, although it hasn't been the smoothest of journeys, let's say. So yeah, thank you very much there, Dylan, for your question there. Next question comes from Remy1004, and they ask, will I be getting Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon? I will be once I finish Far Cry 3. I've basically got so many games in my backlog, I've decided I'm going to play through and complete those first, and then go on to new games after that. So hopefully that answers that. Thank you very much for the question, Remy. Next question comes from Jacob Breyer, and they ask, can I be as unbiased as I can? In my experience and knowledge, what do you think will be better out of the PlayStation 4 and the next Xbox? Well, I think if I'm going to be unbiased, I can't really answer your question until we know some details about the Xbox. What I will say is the PlayStation and Sony, they've come out pretty strong. They've come out swinging. In terms of what features the console's got, the functionality they're putting in there, and on top of that, they just seem to have like the little edge, at least so far. For instance, the built-in streaming and all this kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. Let's see what Microsoft announced. They've got an event all scheduled and everything else. yeah, we'll have to wait and see until then. So Jacob, you're gonna have to. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to put a bit of a rain check on your question there. I'll get back to you on that later. Next question comes from Arsenal 2022, and they ask, "What game am I most looking forward to, or or more likely to buy first, Battlefield 3 or GTA 5?" Well, I'll be buying both on the day of release. That's no question. Which one am I looking forward to more? I'm very torn, but I'm gonna have to say GTA 5. Rockstar always produce a good game. Not to say that DICE won't produce a good Battlefield game, but you know, GTA, there's always a bit of tongue-in-cheek to it, and you know, it's just that's how they are. So definitely GTA 5 actually out of those two, and yeah, I'll be getting them both on release, so no worries there. Unfortunately, guys, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to try and get through these next questions as quickly as I can just to get them answered for you. So first of all, next question comes from Callum Astley, and they ask, will I carry on playing Battlefield 3 or go to Battlefield 4 when it comes out? Definitely go to Battlefield 4. I mean, as it happens at this point in time, Battlefield 3 is getting a little old to me, so I might take a bit of a break from it, who knows, and you know, let it get it to rejuvenise, I don't know. So yeah, definitely we'll go on to Battlefield 4 when it's released, so thank you very much for that, Callum. Joe Mould asks, what is my take on Margaret Thatcher's funeral, and did her decisions ever affect me? Yeah, they definitely did affect me. I think they affected every single person in the UK. As for the price of the funeral, well, she was a divisive figure, but she did a lot for the country. You know, for instance, the Falklands conflict, she kept those islands sovereign to us, and no disrespect to any Argentinians among you, but you know, you did you did say that you didn't want the islands anymore, and we took them over, and I think that's the end of that. So yeah, I definitely, her decisions definitely did affect me, and I definitely think it could be argued everyone else. And was the funeral justified the price? She did a lot, and I think I'd say yes. And I think people, for instance, protesting someone's funeral was a bit much. You know, that is someone's, you know, mother, sister, whatever, that, you know, that died. Give them you know, time and place to push your political point, I think is what I'll say. And with that, guys, I'm out of time. My apologies, I haven't been able to get to everyone's questions this week. Unfortunately, I haven't had much time to play Battlefield, and I don't have much gameplay to show off to you guys. So, guys, thank you very much for your questions. I'll get to answering those as I can, potentially next week or next time as well. And yeah, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, all you have to do is pop it down in the comments section below, and I'll try and get to answering it next question time. If you could leave a like, dislike, whatever you believe this video deserves, that'd be fantastic. And if you're new to my videos and you want to see some more from myself, you can always subscribe. So guys, I've been Chuggy, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time out on the battlefield.